Well, hello everybody, and welcome once again to the latest edition of the Inworld Review. We are coming to you, broadcast live from Chilbo in Second Life in association with AView TV. And today, if I am not incorrect, it is the 12th of the October month, with Halloween coming up in the year of 2014. Now, we were hoping to have some guests today from the Canadian grid, which we've spoken about in the past. And of course, what we've just realized is that in Canada, rather than America, it is currently, I was about to say Halloween, Thanksgiving. And therefore, all the Thanksgiving stuff, whatever that entails, turkeys, I suppose, is going on, and they won't be with us, but hopefully they'll be joining us next week. In the meantime, I am joined, as ever, by Maria Koroloff. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Mel.
And quickly switching cameras, we also joined by Panther Chenille. Do I call you Panther or should I call you by the other name? Or doesn't it matter?
It doesn't matter. I've been Panther Chenille in Second Life for like 8 years now, and I run the competition as Melissa Robison. So,
Right. Okay. So I'm used to calling you Melissa, so I might just stick with that if you don't
you can
mind.
do that. That's fine.
Otherwise, I get myself in a bit of a twist. Right. So we'll be coming to the greater conversation there in a few minutes. But first of all, I'm just going to mention some sort of odd, quick news items at the moment. On Monday, of course, the pre-recorded interview with Ebbe Oldsberg, Linden Labs CEO, was put online by Designing Worlds. I have actually had a chance to listen to that, so that may come up in the conversation. You can actually find the program at our friends slartist.com, SLARTIST.com, and look for Designing Worlds. Nothing greatly new, as far as I can see in the conversation there, although there were a few things that came up. For example, apparently Second Life users are ultimately going to get second names back, although it's not yet at the top of the agenda. It's in one of those pending positions. And, he went into some depth about, in the abstract about the new platform and improvements to Second Life and everything else, basically. So, well worth checking out that program for news from the big boss at Second Life, or rather Linden Labs. Meanwhile, I'm switching over here. Well, we sadly, Tara is not with us today. By the way, I forget what I just mentioned that she's been feeling a little bit poorly, and she is actually in the audience here, so she's sort of lurking in the background, so to speak. And I'm sure she will be back with us next week. This edition, by the way, for very much the same reason, is not actually streaming today, but it will be up within an hour of our completion, so no real worries there. Right. Where was I? Sorry, I think there's something Tara had in mind. I've forgotten what it was, but I was going to mention that as well. But anyway, I shall catch on. Oh, yes, she's also in the channel, and we'll be pasting in the slides that I'm actually sending over now, even though you can't actually watch on the channel. They'll get to you one way or another. Anyway, this is a link to slactions.com. That's slactions, all one word, .org, sorry. And it's really a notification about submission deadline, which is barely a week away now, for their forthcoming content. Forthcoming sort of virtual convention this year. It's called the International Research Conference on Virtual Worlds and Learning with Technology, and it's due to happen on December the 11th to 13th. And I've certainly been there in previous years doing a machinima strand, but if you look at slactions.org, you will actually see a rough breakdown of what they've got planned for this year. So that's that one. Immersive worlds, immersive places, virtual games, whatever you call them, do have something in common with games. We're very fond of saying that they're not games, although you will often find games inside them. But and I particularly am not really a gamer, although I did like things like Seventh Guest, which were puzzle solving. And like many people, I fell in love many years ago with a CD-ROM called Myst. It was originally on the Mac and it had about three sequels. It's been available on all platforms. You can still get it on the iPad, actually. It's a wonderful game to play on the iPad, including an updated sort of touch version of it. So I think this is rather good news. I'm not really into television either, but Myst is getting its own television series. And I suppose if you look at things like Game of Thrones and stuff like that, and the popularity of fantasy now, I can sort of see why it might. It always did have an intriguing backstory to all the puzzles that people solved, and I have a feeling that many of us involved in the metaverse and virtual worlds probably remember Myst way back when it was the closest thing to the interactive environments we have now. So I actually the link I've got for this is not very happy about pasting for some reason. Right, copy and paste. This link is to a post on what online magazine called The Verge. So there you go with that one. I also have a link here to, again, slightly into game territory, but not totally, to a post. You copy paste. There we go. This is a link on CNET news site, and this is about Unity. Now, Unity is used a lot in making games, has been for a long while, but these days a lot of people use it to make immersive spaces, virtual worlds that appear on a web page via a plugin. They're self-contained environments in that you can't jump from an installation on one web page to somewhere else in a metaverse. It's not like that. They are individual instances, but for the purpose of exhibitions that need to be put on the web where people can walk around, or little games and things like that, it's very popular. And many people working in virtual worlds have actually moved into Unity, for putting projects online as opposed to putting builds that are part of a greater world online. So interestingly, this week, it seems that Unity, which CNET describes as the one gaming platform to unite them all, play on words there, I think, is up for sale. Now, I must say I'm a bit surprised at this. They are a huge company, very nice guys too, that run it. I met them a few years ago. I would have thought they were onto a pretty good thing already without putting their products up for sale, but apparently they are putting up for sale. So CNET has a full report on that, and the link will accompany the show at Slotist. And I have an article which sort of fits our frame of reference a little bit. This one comes from an Australian site called CIO. And the title of the piece is Humans versus Machines, Who Will Be Employed in the Future? And obviously virtual existence, shall we say, comes into this equation. But this article is basically saying it doesn't have to be a situation where there are fewer jobs for humans in the future. And obviously points the way to possibly what the new jobs will be as robots take over the factories. But you get the idea. Interesting little read there. And finally, this is from the Fast Company, and it's about our, shall I say, our old friends Microsoft. I'm not quite sure that's the expression I would use really, but Microsoft can now turn any space into the holodeck. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm really looking forward to the holodecks. I'm probably going to drop dead before they arrive, but I'm looking forward to them nonetheless. Microsoft have actually created some very odd technology, which actually takes an image from TV and sort of projects it all around you. Whereas the TV signal is still sort of the same, but they use various projectors to create an immersive environment around you. Whether it qualifies as a holodeck or not is also up to question. But anyway, you might like to check out that link at the Fast Design. And that's about it for the things I've I'm going to the headlines from there. Although I will jump the gun in one regard. I did actually IM Crystal Lopez in hopes she might like to show up today, but no reply sadly. But the hypergrid this week is 6 years old, and I
Not
think
this
we
week.
need a.
Not this week. This month. On the 26th.
Well, okay, next week. Okay, we'll get her on next week then. Okay, but isn't that great? Isn't that it seems like yesterday. It's hard to believe. The hypergrid is 6 years old, and I actually filmed a program with Krista before the hypergrid started, where she was in Second Life building a 3D model of how it worked. And I remember filming that, and so that must be 7 years ago at least. So time really flies, astonishing. So happy birthday, hypergrid, is all I can say. And with that, I'm throwing over to Maria for the headlines.
All right. Well, first of all, on the holodeck thing, I totally see that. In particular, I can see that for home offices where you might have the white walls around you be showing like your virtual office, like your the people who would be in cubicles next to you if you weren't working at home, but working in like a busy place. So you can stand up and yell over this virtual cubicle wall. Hey, Jim. Hey, Jan. Okay, send that report over to me, and and trade gossip and stuff like that.
I know that one of the joys of working at home surely must be the fact that you don't need to dress up and you can do everything virtually. The idea that your room is going to turn into a cubicle and you're going to pop up and wave defeats the object, really, doesn't it?
Well, you can turn it on and off, but
yeah,
I kind of, I kind of like working by myself sometimes. But other times, I really like working with other people. In fact, one of the most productive places for people to work is in coffee shops with that little background of noise and stuff. And so you kind of isolated, but you're kind of around other people. It keeps your energy level up a little bit more, keeps you from going into a depressive downward spiral. And so because we are social beings, we kind of like seeing other people existing around us. And some people are extremely social and they have a really hard time working alone by themselves without somebody to tell them what to do or without keeping them on task. They would spend the whole day in front of the refrigerator. I'm not saying I'm one of those people, but I definitely see the temptation to kind of, you don't have a call for another 2 hours. You can watch an episode of Battlestar Galactica, right? That kind of thing. And you don't have to dress up so you can wear pajamas every day. And eventually you kind of deteriorate into this unshaven, unwashed blob of a human being. So, so for those people, being able to turn on their presence and be part of a busy office might be really nice. And of course, FaceTime helps with promotions and raises because your bosses and coworkers can see you working and see you being busy. And, out of if you want to be up and stuff, you want people to remember that you exist. So that's also a factor there. And also you want to be in on the gossip and the schmoozing, who's leaving whose job and, has opportunity available on their team, what cool new projects are happening, is there a round of layoffs coming? Is there a new customer coming on board? You want to hear this kind of stuff so that you can plan ahead and so that you can take advantage of things that happen in a large company. So I think that you can go to extremes one way or the other, but I think that if you reach a kind of a happy medium where you're there enough to kind of participate in the company culture, but not so much that you don't have any private time to work, I think you can find a balance there. And of course, nobody will be happy because nobody's ever happy with anything. But I think that there's a possibility of a more or less, you know, general medium that you can find. And also, it doesn't block your view. It doesn't block your eyes. If you have a cat coming in through and sitting on your keyboard, you know it's there. If somebody knocks on your door, you know it's there. If a kid runs through, you don't trip over them. So and of course you have all your furniture, so you can sit at your furniture and use your keyboard and use your monitors, and it won't interfere with any of that. So I definitely see the potential of that for workplaces. For recreational use, I kind of like the all immersive one where you're totally in the world and you forget that anything else exists. But we'll see. We'll see. It's still really early to tell. So who knows what's going to shape up. Okay. So let us go and I'm going to there's some little hardware briefs I'll get out of the way first. A couple
Quite-
more
quite-
couple
Quite
of more
lots of them.
3. That's not too many.
Oh, right.
So you have a couple of more companies are deploying Oculus VR for real world purposes. Specifically, the movie Interstellar has a setup that they're taking around to a few movie theaters where you sit in a special chair and you get a tour of the spaceship from the movie. So that is pretty cool. And God, I wish I lived in Houston, so I could get in on that. A bigger one is there's a company that makes automotive equipment and has to train mechanics in how to use it. And they're using virtual reality headsets, the Oculus Rift. And the company is Robert Bosch. They're training between 8 and 10,000 auto mechanics on direct injection and brakes using virtual reality. And they're, instead of having just the 4 stops that Interstellar is having, they're actually going to 750 different locations and training technicians with this, because with the Oculus Rift, they can take you right inside the engine. And that's not something possible in real life. So I thought that was really cool. And I have a link to the full story to Detroit Free Press and a video. Also in hardware news, Carl Zeiss is getting into the headset space. Zeiss is a maker of high-end lenses. I think one of their lenses went to the moon. And they have a headset called the VR1. And it looks really spiffy. You can pre-order it now. Shipping is scheduled to begin before Christmas. It costs $99 in the United States.
I know, so cheap.
99 euro. 99 euro in the in Europe.
Oh, even cheaper.
It looks really pretty. It has these trays that come in and out, and right now they support the iPhone 6 and Samsung Galaxy S5, and they're going to be making more trays for more different kinds of phones. So if you have people with different phones in your family, all you have to do is get them different trays. And the front part of the camera, there's like this black panel, it's transparent, so you can actually use the forward-facing camera on a cell phone, which means that you can have positional tracking or you can have augmented reality, because you can show you what's in front of you and put the virtual reality on top of it. So I think this is a really, really slick headset. And it looks really, really cute. And they've got a developer kit for developers who write apps on this for the iOS and for Android for Unity 3D. So I think this is really cool.
I saw I saw a picture of this. Not
Mhm.
it looks great, but at 99 euros is even cheaper than $99. But that, I mean, this this
Are you
seems to
sure?
be incredible. Um, yeah, I think so. But yeah, but I mean, as an entry level thing, not only looks good, but this idea of adaptable trays. I mean, it's taking Samsung's thing out the water, really, isn't it? Because you can't use that one without using a Samsung phone.
Exactly.
Right.
No,
Mm.
99 euros is 125 US dollars.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yes.
It's
I'm
going to
sure
be
we can.
the
I'm
other
sure
direction.
European. Yeah. All right. So, Avi World is back in the
Oh,
news.
yay, yo yo!
Yay. Okay. So, a grid called Quick Life Grid, which I've never heard of before, and Skylife are merging with Avi Worlds. And Skylife Grid, you might remember, decided to take on the hosting responsibilities for Avi Worlds back in September. And they're happy together. Josh Bohm says he's the founder of Skylife Grid, and he does their infrastructure. And he says that Alexandro Pomposelli, the guy who runs Everworlds, is a great guy, and that he's astounded by how loyal and passionate the Everworlds users are. They're just flooding back into this grid. He doesn't know what the secret is. It's like a drug, he says. So I thought that was really funny, and he's moved over most of the regions and content from Skylife into Aviworlds. So that's interesting. Aviworlds is on the hypergrid, and you can teleport over. They had a big party yesterday. They are. And they built a hyperport to other grids, which looks cool. I've got a picture of it set up. Um, so they seem kind of committed to the hypergrid. So it'll be nice nice to see which way it goes. Yes, the hypergrid turns 6 on October 26th. A quarter of the gates are already up and working, so I'm having a blast. To illustrate the story, I decided to build a 3D chess set because a hypergrid is kind of like 3D chess. It's chessboards, one on top of each other, stacked up, and it looked like an easy thing to build. It took me all of last night to build it. I should have just grabbed a picture of one from the web instead, but it looked so easy to build. But but I had to create all the textures and the metal textures and everything else. And so I wouldn't have having to write a tutorial on how to create metal textures because I forgot how to do it again, and I couldn't, and I googled it and I couldn't find it. So and then so it just mushroomed. So finally I built this thing and I put it for sale on Kitely Market for 10 Kitely credits. If anybody wants it, they can have it. But it's it was fun to do.
I remember when we did film Krista Lopez, where before the hypergrid was a reality. It was very sort of, she didn't use chessboard, but sort of she started off making a sort of platform, raising it in the air, and then she did one a bit higher up, overlapping, and the camera was busy trying to follow her as she was building this sort of deck of overlapping systems. It's yeah.
Well,
anyway,
now
sorry.
if somebody wants it, it's built, it's there. You can use it as a prop to demonstrate the hypergrid to other people. All right. So other grid moves. ExoLife moved from ZetaMex to spiders.
What's happening here? I keep losing. Okay, you're back.
I keep losing the sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll repeat myself. Okay, so if you're a grid owner, or you want to be a grid owner, and you're not a technical person, So you want somebody else to take care of the technology for you. So this is a nice kind of article about what could go wrong, what you should kind of watch out for when you choose a hosting provider. You always want to learn from other people's mistakes, right? You don't want to learn from your own mistakes. So, so I thought that would be a useful article of like the worst case scenario of what can happen with a hosting company, and ExoLife listed 10 reasons why they're switching away from ZeniMax to Dreamland Metaverse, and Dreamland and ZeniMax had both their rebuttals in the article. So that was interesting, and then it evolved in the comments into a huge discussion of virtual currencies for some reason. Oh, because that was one of the problems that they had. ZeniMax is a U.S. company, and they don't want to get into the business of offering virtual currencies to people because virtual currencies in the United States are regulated under the prepaid access laws, and you have to register as a money transmitter or as a financial organization, which is extremely, extremely expensive and time consuming. Lots of regulations, anti-money laundering laws, know your customer laws, all sorts of laws apply to banks and similar financial institutions. Nobody wants to become one of those. It's unless you have a lot of money laying around. So ZeniMax is in the United States, and they didn't want to do that. Dreamland Metaverse is based in Europe, and they're not operating under the same laws. They do offer a currency module for their grids. So that is actually a substantial difference between the two operations that is useful to know.
For sure.
So what else is new? The U.S. government has donated another region to the happy folks at OpenSim. Specifically, a small part of the campus of the University of Central Florida, which they scanned with laser scanners called LiDAR and imported into Maya, turned it into mesh, and then imported it into OpenSim. So very cool. So instead of building everything by hand from photographs, they scanned it and uploaded it. Interesting example of I think that corporations looking to digitize campuses or maybe governments might be interested in this kind of technology as well if they need to bring something into a virtual form, that there's a workflow there that they outlined. Really interesting article about how they did that. And of course, the region that they produced is free. It's open source. You can't resell it, and you have to have the attribution. So you can resell it, but you can't make it proprietary. It's a share alike license. Okay, so the other thing that I've been doing this week is I updated my Google spreadsheet visitor logger. One of the nice things you can do is you can log visitors to a Google spreadsheet. And I have been, and that in fact is one of the 10 most popular articles on my website for the past few years. Apparently everybody wants to log visitors to a spreadsheet. But Google has changed the ways that the spreadsheet is set up. And so somebody called Zuza Rit has updated my instructions with some detail about you have to go into the source view of the page and dig up some codes out of there. So I simplified the process a little bit and updated my script and posted that script for free for anybody to use. And that is 12 minus 7 is 5, and that is it for me. Everything else we talked about. Did we talk about the craft outage last week? No,
no, you didn't mention that actually. Yeah.
So Craft went down last Sunday night. Craft Grid is one of the big nonprofits. They're based in Italy. So they're mostly an Italian language grid with a lot of English spoken there, of course, because English is spoken everywhere. But they went down on Sunday night with a similar RAID problem. And RAID is a storage array that went down on OS Grid. So they went down with a similar issue. They kept everybody posted. They gave an ETA as to when the grid will be back up. They were back up earlier than expected. They were right back up the next day. They had all their backups. They didn't lose anything. Now, of course, you can't compare Craft and OS Grid because OS Grid is orders of magnitude bigger than Craft. But the last update we've had out of OS Grid was on October 1st. We're on October 12th right now. The OS Grid has been down for 2 months now. It is it's way too long. They've made 6, 7 news updates since then. Half of them kind of not even direct ones, but indirect ones. Somebody else posted something somebody else said in a chat, in a forum, and unless you went to that particular forum or were in that particular chat, you wouldn't have heard this. Communication has been truly atrocious, and even some big supporters of OS Grid are starting to say, okay, we're throwing all this money at you guys, but really, what's going on? What's happening?
It did sound to me like, I know the fundraising is underway, but it did sound to me that they actually did have, it was going to leave them with a tight budget, but they did actually have enough money to get it all up and running again. And that's, what are we waiting for? Every week I want to go on the hypergrid. I'm sort of, to be honest, I'm almost hanging on to get my inventory and everything back from OS Grid, so I can start in earnest again. Yeah.
It's really ridiculous. I know they're volunteers, okay? So I know that we can't make them do anything because these people are volunteers. But when you volunteer to sign up to do a huge project like this, you have to expect that there's going to be certain opportunities that come with that volunteer position, certain responsibilities. And if you can't meet those responsibilities, you shouldn't volunteer. Like, if I volunteer to, run a blood drive or something, and I don't bother to show up, I'm not going to say, oh, I was just a volunteer, you can't expect me to show up. Yes, you can, And in this case, I do expect them to show up. I do expect to explain what's going on. And if they can't do that, they should find somebody who can. There's plenty of people who would love to help out with OS Grid, who think OS Grid is important, who think OS Grid is really, really valuable to OpenSim, who would like to pitch in, who would like to help, who haven't had the opportunity because the current management is very insular, very inward focused, not outward focused. It is not community oriented at all, and seems to be running the grid for themselves. And
it's very worrying too. I mean, we are barely weeks away now from the OpenSim Community Conference, and if it's not back up by then, I mean, people can teleport into the conference from elsewhere, but if it's not up by then, it's going to be a downer, I think, on the whole thing.
Okay. This is it's killing the hosting providers that have businesses based on OS Grid. It's that there's nonprofits and schools that are using it, and of course this is when school's starting. I mean, when it went down. One story I'm working on right now that will be published in probably an hour or so is that Dreamland is offering a migration to mini grids for anybody who hasn't migrated yet. They're throwing in an extra month of free rental for people who migrate their OpenSim regions to private mini grids. So, and this is something that other hosting providers have been talking about as well, that you can take your OS Grid region and move it somewhere else while the grid is down. The problem is that, Adrenaline was explaining this to me, when you run a region, so say you have a region on your home computer, and you have a bunch of stuff on that region. Usually, most of that stuff is stored on your home computer, but some of that stuff is stored in an asset database on the grid itself. And when you save the region as an OR file, as an export, it can be hard to do if the central database is down and you don't have the assets. So say for example that you buy a building, and giant building, and you put it on your region. Instead of having the entire building stored locally, you just have the name and the identifying number of the building, and the building itself is stored in a central database, so that you don't have multiple copies of every single item on the grid on every single region, because that would just be really, too much, right? So you kind of so in order to save on storage for everybody, there's no reason to have a local copy of every single asset. Well, what happens now is that if you take your region and try to take it somewhere else, you're missing those assets that are grid assets instead of your own local assets. So what Dreamland has done is they figure out a way to use to recover some of those assets for their users, so that their exports are a little bit more complete than they otherwise would be. But it is a tricky situation. And of course, nobody can get their inventories out at all. There's no way to do that, because all the inventories are stored centrally. None of them are stored locally on your site, unless you make a backup yourself.
I have a feeling when OS Grid does come back, the main activities we're going to be seeing is people logging in to back up everything offline.
Well, everybody backs up when it's too late.
Yeah, well, quite. Yes, if it returns at all, that is. Yeah. Oh well, never mind. Okay, let's we'll come back into the discussion in a bit. That was all the main news, wasn't it? From you, I think. I have one other link here, which is to Brynno's site, which is Brynno, BRYNOH.blogspot.com. And it published on Wednesday. It's a piece about art at logarithms, and this is to do with the Real World exhibition of her work. And there's some lovely sort of photographs here of three side-by-side screens sort of hanging up, what seems to be like hanging up in midair, almost a sort of surround vision set up with screens. And basically that's just a comment on the exhibition. Is actually a total retrospective of the work, so I thought I'd stick that one in while we're at it. Right. Okay. Well, let's move over now to our other guest, Melissa Robison. Welcome again, Melissa. Sorry to keep you waiting for a bit there.
No.
You, of course, are principally here because you are the organizer of the 48-hour. I will get the time right this week. Film contest, or rather, not the film contest itself, but the machinima contest part of it. Which there's an event in Inworld, isn't there? And there's the. It's as if the machinima bit is one of the cities in the greater 48-hour concert. But just tell us a bit about it first, I think.
Okay, yeah, great. So the 48-hour film project is in 140 international cities, and we have brought it to machinima since 2008. And it's really a very exciting competition where filmmakers from around the world, and the machinima competition is open to anyone around the world, compete in a very exciting and fast-paced virtual reality filmmaking contest. And it's going to be held on November 14th through 16th, 2014. And what we are doing is having filmmakers capture within a real-time motion capture environment like Second Life or OpenSim or World of Warcraft, Halo, Movie Storm, etc. They are to make a film in 48 hours. So basically, everyone convenes on a Friday, and they get a genre given to them randomly, and then everybody has to include the same line of dialogue, a character, and a prop that is defined like the hour before the competition. So no one should be doing any ideation prior to the competition. People can find their locations, they can pick their team members, they can do everything except for the actual creative work. That has to be done within the 48 hours. The 48-hour time frame, and it's really exciting. And a lot of people who participate say that it's their favorite part of the year is participating in this competition. I guess what we're doing is sending URLs to Tara so she can include them later.
Yeah, if you just type them in Skype there, they'll be. I'll forward those to the website when the program's published in a while. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we got that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can register online at www.48hourfilm.com/machinima. And one of the exciting. Go on.
No, I was just going to say it is great. I forget. I think it was about 3 years ago. I was on one of the teams that did that, and it's pretty exhaustive weekend, I can tell you. But it is great fun because it's not only getting the thing done and coming up with a good machinima film, but it's also the team building exercise that goes into it. A whole load of people of necessity working to that kind of deadline. It's quite a rewarding experience, even though it's very exhaustive. And as you say, people can. I have this thing of calling the machinima I like is what I call inhabited machinima. In other words, it's in open sim or it's in Second Life, and you've got actors, actresses, directors, producers, runners, the whole works.
Right.
Although I'm less keen on things like Movie Storm and stuff, where it's usually one or two guys at the most.
Right.
Probably are guys too, just sitting there, with the building the thing offline. So, machinima that's made in world, actually has living, the avatars are actual all individual people, and, they act as actors do, or they direct as directors do. But it's, it's a fascinating thing to be able to do.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things I've been involved with the 48-hour film project for a while. And one of the things that I am appreciative of is how all of the people who participate on a regular basis and their family and friends and sponsors and local celebrities come together every year. And for Machinima, we do the screening for the Machinima competition. We do the screening in Second Life. And we also do a live broadcast, thanks to you, Mal, and your team. And it is just something that it brings people back together again year after year. And I also want to stress that the team that wins the Machinima competition this year will go on to Filmapalooza, which is the 48-hour film project's yearly festival, where the winner of each city is put in the festival, and then the winners at that festival could potentially go on to the Cannes Film Festival for 2015.
Now, didn't that happen last year or the year before? One of the Machinima entries did actually make it to the greater stage, shall we say, didn't they? Was it Tatsu? I forget who it was.
Well, every year we have a Machinima film in Filmapalooza. So Dicey Deal last year went on to Filmapalooza, which was in, where was it? New Orleans this year. And I don't think they went on to Cannes, though. So that's something that we want to, be inspired to try to do.
The first Machinima to arrive in Cannes. Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be super awesome. The other thing this year, we have some really great sponsors. And as everyone, I think, knows, AView TV is one of our sponsors, and they provide a lot of support for us being in Second Life and getting the word out. And then also we have, we're very appreciative to be on this show as well to help get the word out and recruit teams. And, when I was listening to, talking about Avi Worlds. Is that how you said it?
Yeah.
AV Worlds. Like I would love to get into a lot of different worlds and recruit folks and get a lot of different machinima up this year as much as we possibly can. And we have some other sponsors. New Blue FX is providing, and I can send a link to that too. New Blue FX provides plugins, professional video editing plugins and effects for Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, Media Composer, I think, and other popular video editing software. And they're giving a film color plugin to the filmmakers who enter this year for free.
Oh, that's nice of them.
Yeah, it's really a good little program. It's not, they have a lot of different software, and this is one of their software packages. But if you, for instance, get horror or period piece, or it enables you with this plugin to kind of give a tone and a mood and a feel to the film with their color editing software. And then we have one of our sponsors, Pond 5. It's a marketplace for media makers. It offers a collection of royalty-free stock video footage and millions of stock photos, illustrations, music, tracks, and sound effects. And while we want the film itself to be machinima, there are instances where you may want to use some stock footage or soundtracks. Exactly. And they're offering a $25 gift certificate at kickoff to every team leader, and then they will give a $100 certificate to the winner of best film and also to the 2 runner-ups. So that's a really good prize this year that we didn't have last year.
And great incentive. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have to remind me again. I've gone numb here. What date is the weekend of it again?
It's November 14th through the 16th.
Right, I thought so. I was just thinking you were saying you're anxious to get into other worlds, but in fact, if I'm not wrong, that actually collides with the Open Sim Community Conference. But I was thinking that would be a great place to go, where you can catch all the people on the Open Sims too, sort of all in one place once a year, rather than hybrid gridding around 1,000 different grids.
Right. So it sounds like I'll be missing that date.
Yeah, am I right, Maria? Those dates clash, don't they?
It's what's it? November 7th through 9th.
Oh, so it's week 4.
No. November 8th through 9th, right? Is the OSCC. When is hers?
You're the week later. Okay, so they don't clash.
They don't clash.
But also, if you want to reach out to the Open Sim community, I'd love to. If you want to send me a press release, I'll run it on Hypergood Business.
I'll certainly do that. I do want to mention one other sponsor is Wright Brothers, and they provide screenwriting software, and they're going to provide Movie Magic screenwriter software to the winner of Best Film this year, as well, which is a pretty good value. If you think about the number of teams that we usually have, we limit it because we don't have the ability, like in this year, and we had about 100 teams, but we don't have the capacity to do 100 teams with Machinima unless I brought on a bunch of other people to help me. But with the what I was getting at is that since we have a limited number of teams that we can support each year, the percentage of people who will win is pretty high.
Okay, Melissa, I'm going to have to interfere there. If you'd like to just recap on the last minute, I think our sound dropped, but it looks like we're okay now, so carry on.
I don't know exactly what you missed, but I was talking about one of our other sponsors, Wright Brothers. They're providing
we got that,
screenwriting software. And then the last part is that we do have some good prizes and some good incentives from our sponsors for teams, and in some cases, I think the incentives outweigh even the cost of entering the competition itself.
Mm. It's exciting, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
So while we're on machinima, and we got you here, what do you think of the state of machinima at the moment, particularly inhabited machinima in Second Life and Open Sim and stuff? I know a few weeks ago, Hamlet Ord is some kind of blog. I forget what the details were, sort of saying, what's happened to the machinima in Second Life. And I thought, well, I look at my feeds and there's more and more every week, and there's some absolutely stunning stuff coming up. It's not all just dancing avatars at gigs.
Right.
But do you feel it's sort of on the rise at the moment, or in general?
Yeah, I feel when I first I actually approached 48 Hour Film Project in 2007, I think it was, and encouraged them to do machinima. And I thought that there was a lot of promise at that point. I think that as with any art form and with cinema itself and with short films, you have some really good work, and then you have some people who just kind of didn't give it the love that it could have been given. I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and I think there's a lot of really great machinima films out there. One of the things that I think is really cool is you can do abstract, and you can get beautiful shots of landscapes and places, and it's not as expensive as if you were to have that kind of set in real life. So the opportunity to be very poetic with your films, I think, is really there. And I do think, as with anything, content is king. And if you have a strong story, that's the best thing for any kind of film, and that's true with machinima. If you can get a really good story in there, then there's an opportunity at a low cost to make a really good film. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I think the story is the prime thing, but it's it can be a story that's actually performed and acted, or it can be a story that is simply a visual narrative. And I've seen some very well filmed machinima that incorporate things like text overlays and things into it, or maybe recite a poem, with some nice music along with the machinima. So it actually opens. It's hard to imagine that I'm sure it has been done in real life film, but it's a different dimension. It's so easy to explore all those different methods of storytelling in new and unique ways, which despite the rise of digital cinema and 360 surround cameras, that's more off in a traditional direction, whereas I think machinima can be employed to do a lot of other things.
I agree. I think also it's an interesting thing to explore with filmmaking, with schools. You can explore different cinematic techniques within Second Life, for instance, that you wouldn't be able to have a budget to do in real life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I, on my list, and every year it comes up sooner than I expected it to. But one of the things that I have been trying to do is approach maybe even real life filmmaking schools and encourage them to have a team in the machinima competition.
Do you? Sorry, got a croak in my throat. Do you do any training or anything like that yourself, and I guess not as the 48-hour machinima contest, but sort of preludes to production and things like that?
I had last year, or I can't remember what year it was. I had started to set up. Do you mean training for the filmmaking teams themselves?
Yeah, principally, yeah.
I had wanted to do something like that, and I had set up an initial technical office hours instructional meeting. And the people who came to that particular one they really wanted to know about the rules and what they could and couldn't do. And I just think it was the people that had already signed up to be teams already knew how to do machinima. So I think that the opportunity for training is probably with folks who may not actually have done it before.
Yeah, that's sort of how I felt, because I'm usually on, and indeed there's one coming up right now with tomorrow's Week in Review. We'll have quite a few new clips from the University of Western Australia's latest machinima contest, Transcending Borders. But what I often do, I actually do this when I'm finding clips for the channel too, is I was sort of, if I come across one I like, I download the hard HD version, as opposed to the SD ones I flick through rapidly. And I'll put them on a network drive and then play them on a big screen through surround sound and things like that, which is very satisfying. Although last time I judged one, it took me about 60 hours to get through them. but the reason I asked about the training really is because often when I get to that stage, I've really become aware of the problems people haven't thought of. For example, somebody may film an absolutely brilliant machinima, and watching it on your little computer window through computer speakers, it sounds absolutely fine and it's audible and everything else like that. The moment you put it through a decoding system, professional decoding system, the sound goes awry, because they haven't taken different levels and things into account. And similar things, sound may be perfect, for example, but you start realizing, pixels and strange things,
right,
when you view stuff. And, when I think of, some machinima going into, like you say, at the end of the day, could it get to Cannes? I'm very conscious of how good this stuff needs to be on the big screen. Over and beyond just web windows, although our web monitors, of course, are pretty high resolution these days. And I see it's almost tragic in a way, because I do see some films going my way that, are really worthy until I put them through the system, so to speak. And it also applies to, what we do with television here. I know we've got a couple of problems today with lip sync, which is a mystery to us, by the way, folks. It's probably down the second life. But, we go through the finicky stuff of, making sure it's as right, as we can get it. And, I'll, coming up tomorrow, we've got a film which was part of the Metaverse Cultural Series that Avacon did, which is actually, I think it's about 2 months old, but it was actually filmed, I don't know whether it was in Second Life or in OpenSim. And, we'll be running it. It will look a bit like this show, because they've actually taken care to make sure that the name tags have gone from above people's heads, and that, it's as realistic as possible. And, frequently I will go to, films that people have made and posted to YouTube, and the interface will be showing, but everything else will be perfect. But, I just don't see it as usable in a televisual sense, unless it's a tutorial or something like that, where you want the interface up. And, people just make these small mistakes and think, that they, it doesn't occur to them that they should not have radio waves coming out of people's mouths and things like that. Which I think it's a shame. What I'd like to see is a lot more, so for people who want to know, a lot more training to help people, learn to do it properly. They may actually be doing great work already, but they're just overlooking one of those tiny things, or two of those tiny things, that make all the difference. And I've actually seen stuff coming out of Second Life, for example, that I certainly don't run on our channel because it doesn't look good enough. But if it wasn't for the faults, it would actually be very good, if you see what I mean. So it's, I think that, they said that, these days with mobile phones and virtual worlds, everybody is a camera. Quite frankly, if you want to be, you just fire up your camera. What's lacking is kind of the discipline, knowledge of what you really meant to do with a camera, as opposed to just firing it up, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think one of the things that maybe we did wrong or I did wrong with the previous attempt to do a training or a technical meeting was, I think, just like you said, taking a look at machinima that's been produced and identifying some of the, common mistakes people make, and then just have a training that focuses on, okay, this week we're going to focus on, or I don't know if I could do a training every week, but this training we're going to focus on audio, or on this training we're going to focus on compression, or capturing. And then it's something that's really focused, and people would show up, and even if they didn't show up, if there were only 3 people there, it's still worthwhile to do.
Maybe we should do all put aside one day and have a 1-day conference on what not to do when filming a cinema. Yeah,
I think that could work, and I would agree that seeing some machinima on the big screen, I've seen it like on the big screen at Filmapalooza. And the vibrancy of the color, the strength of the sound, when it's at a movie theater, it's even more glaring if something's a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's just common sense. I don't think people always realize that when they're, filming in low resolution, or just their computer monitor. The other thing that really annoys me, to be honest, is dimensions. I keep downloading machinima that would otherwise be fine from places like YouTube, and they're not 16:9. They might be SD, they might be HD. They're usually HD, but they don't fit your average screen frame, be it television or film. And when you like watching television on the modern sort of fairly wide screens, and they show an old clip of something that was back in the days when it was a square screen, and you get the black bars at the side. When it's all put together with other films and things, it just doesn't look right. Suddenly these black bars come in, and you think you're watching an old TV set, and I just think it spoils it a bit, because people don't attend to just simple things like that.
Yeah, and in our rules for the machinima competition, we do require that it's 16:9 ratio HD. I think we went to that a few years ago. One of the reasons why we stuck with SD for as long as we did is just because it just takes longer to render when it's larger. True.
Yeah, it's not so much. Well, SD is weak in some cases, but I play SD YouTube videos on a 720p TV screen, and they look fine as a rule. It's only when you stick your nose up against the thing that you can really tell the difference. But it's just the overall look. It's the framing and things like that people haven't necessarily thought about. Anyway, we're not here to criticize machinima makers. We're here to encourage them. But
well, I would want to add that since I've was city producer for DC, and I've also seen a lot of the films that have come through for the other cities too. Filmmakers across the board, you have some that really know what they're doing, and then you have some beginners that are making the mistakes that beginners make. And that's just part of the competition. And one of the things that's really exciting to me is just to see how some filmmakers start, and some of them, like in the cities out there, they've done it for 13 years, and you can see the progression of their first film to their last film, and that for me is really an exciting thing to see too.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I noticed when I say there's so much amazing machinima coming out now. They the guys, men and women. I don't mean guys. Lots of them are women, which is great. They've been around for a long time, and you do, as you say, you see that progression. People who just did something that was good 5 years ago are now doing actually tremendous work because they've grown into it, and they introduce more subtleties or get a bit more ambitious about what their statements they're trying to make and things like that. So I think the quality is just increasing no end. Those that know how to do it are just doing it better and better, and obviously new people are coming in
Right.
and following the path that's been laid before them a bit. Okay, well, let's move on. Sorry, I'm working a camera here at the same time and pressing buttons, realizing that I was talking and I wasn't on screen. That was very good. Into more general discussion, I think. I don't really have that many points of the week, but did either of you, Melissa or Maria, hear the Designing Worlds broadcast earlier in the week with Abby Linden?
No, sorry, what happened? Was there shocking news? Or they're shutting down Patterns?
Oh yes, that's that came afterwards. No, the Patterns, Linden Labs are giving up on Patterns. Though oddly enough, they said they were discontinuing to support it, and then immediately after they said they were looking for somebody to take it over. So, which I remember all the fuss when they closed something else down, and people were moaning. I know it was the storytelling thing, and weeks later, I think Linda said, "Well, maybe we can come to an arrangement and you can do it independently." And they seem to have gone for this straight away this time with Patterns. They're actually saying, "Does anybody want to take it off our hands?" I don't know how much they want for it. That's another matter entirely. But yes, that was kind of interesting.
I really hate it when companies that have developed a software product that people love and use just shut it down. Worst case, donate it to an open source community. Let people who need it continue to use it. The thing is, when you have a product that you buy, like say Microsoft Office, even if Microsoft discontinues the software, you still have it on your own computer. You can continue using it forever. I mean, there's people still running DOS, software out there, right? Until they put it in the cloud, and then the cloud goes down. Right. When it's in the cloud, you turn it off, and it's off, right? So, I really wish company, and I've been burned by this. There was a database program I was using that was cloud hosted. And they were bought up by Twitter, and Twitter didn't want the software. They wanted the programmers. Yeah. So they just shut it down. And because Twitter didn't care about this little software that was going on. It wasn't part of their corporate strategy or whatever. And so they just closed it off, and everybody had to scramble looking for alternatives. And there were no alternatives. It was unique. Oh, the agony, the misery. But my point is that if you are a customer and you're looking at a vendor that has a cloud-based software, this is one of the things that you should seriously consider. What's going to happen if the vendor decides to discontinue the product, or if the vendor decides just go out of that line of business? What do? You don't have the software to continue running. Is the vendor going to step up and say, we will donate this to a community? I mean, in that case, the vendor should have that kind of the process lined up ahead of time. Everything moving to the cloud, it's a real big problem.
I think it's a shame there aren't rules that govern this. Although you could say the same about all sorts of stuff on the web these days. But it's affected me too, in much the same way as it has you, because we do similar things with newsreaders and stuff like that. Google Reader goes, and eventually we settle on things like Feedly. But there's that big stopgap where your workflow basically is interrupted, and I find it particularly annoying if it is a service that you are actually paying for. in which, when it's, we're talking about EarthGrid, when it's a free service, you kind of
Right.
wonder, you can moan all you like, but it wasn't free. But if it's something you subscribe to and it suddenly goes, I think that's, really a bit of a different thing. I mentioned the Mist series coming to TV at the top of the show. But I mean, Myst was one of those games that went online and then collapsed. But in fact, they did actually give it away to communities so that, the Myst Online, as far as I know, continues to this day.
Right.
It's run by different people in a different way, but there was a user base there, and rather than just dump them all in it, they made provision for it to operate independently. Whether it's open source or not, I don't know. And we've the other thing, example that is pertinent to us is Cloud Party, which was doing very well for itself, thank you, until Yahoo came along and bought it up and shut it down. What happened
That's a
to all the
much better
cloud?
example. Much better
Yeah.
example than my example of the database.
Yes, I mean it's not that long ago, and so far
Yeah.
all we know is the programmers are now at Yahoo, and there's nothing on the
Right.
horizon that sounds like anything to do with Cloud Party. They may have something
Exactly.
up their sleeves, but
They
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 ruined
were
it.
they were bought for exactly the same idea. They bought the company for the staffers who had graphics knowledge to do stuff for Yahoo's improving their website. I don't know what. But and then they repurposed those programmers. They didn't need the virtual technology, which is such a shame. Now, and I really wish that the Cloud Party folks had said something like, "Okay, we'll open source this. We'll give it away," uh, or Yahoo done that. But I guess Yahoo didn't care because it's not their customers that they're screwing over. They're messing up the lives of Cloud Party's customers, and Cloud Party no longer exists. So no corporate entity is harmed by this process.
Oh no.
Well, people are people too. It's not just corporations that are people. Yeah, you have to look at the harm done to actual customers. The other thing that you can do to protect yourself as a customer is look whenever possible. Like if you really want something to run in the cloud because it's so convenient and so useful, is to have your cloud provider different from your software provider. So, for example, I have a website, and it's a WordPress install. WordPress is an open source software, and I run it with DreamHost. If DreamHost goes out of business, I can move my entire website somewhere else, probably with a day or so or two of downtime to get the DNS switched over. Maybe I'll lose a couple of weeks of data if I haven't made a recent backup, unless they give me a couple of days to make backups, which I hope they would. Hopefully more than a couple of days. But the moving process is straightforward because the software is open source. I can keep it as long as I want to. And the hosting has many competitors.
Yeah.
So in the virtual world space, the equivalent would be OpenSim. The software is open source, and there's many competitors where I can go and host it. And if one vendor goes down, like OS Grid goes down, I can go and I take my regions and I attach them to Metropolis or attach them to Zeta Worlds. Or if I have my whole grid, I can take my grid and like ExoLife just did, and move it from one hosting provider to another, because the underlying software and content is either all mine or it's open source. And so I get to keep it for as long as I want to. And I think that is a good middle of the road strategy for people who can't have local software. I can't run OpenSim locally because my computer's too old and my bandwidth's too slow. Speaking of bandwidth, did you see the new report from Pew?
No, I don't think so.
Pew Research came out with this giant report about what's going to happen when we all have gigabit Ethernet.
Ah, yes, maybe I did see something. Yeah.
It came out on the 10th, so that was 2 days ago. It came out on Friday. killer apps in the gigabit age, and they talked to a whole bunch of experts about what they think was going to happen when all of us have gigabit. Now, the average speed in the United States is something like 10 Mbps, and a gigabit is 1,000. So this is 100 times faster than what we have now. And Google is already rolling it out in a couple of towns. And AT&T has said that they're going to begin building gigabit networks in up to 100 different cities. Chattanooga, Tennessee, Lafayette, Louisiana, and Bristol, Virginia already have super speedy networks. And there's pockets of gigabit in Las Vegas, Omaha, Santa Monica, and places in Vermont. Well, what a weird collection of locations to have gigabit
small testing zones, actually.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Exactly. Small testing zones and really progressive communities have really stepped forward. And the experts are saying is that we can have full virtual telepresence.
Yeah.
Pretty much any time we wanted to, or all the time. We can live in this teleconnected world. And of course, virtual reality and augmented reality is part of that. So interesting report. Lots of experts are quoted. They talk to almost 1,500 different experts. And it's a free report. It's available online now. I will post the link here in Skype chat. Here I go. So, if you had a gigabit Ethernet, what would you do with that, Mal?
Well, it's a good point. I was going to come in with this anyway, but I presume with fiber optics that I have, that will support gigabit speeds when they come along anyway, because the bandwidth's barely used. But I have the fastest connection available in the UK, which is, it's not 10, it's 152. So I'm quite a long way towards the gigabit. But actually, if anything, it actually shows up the limitations of the hardware I've got. You can have blistering fast speeds, but if your own CPUs and multitasking can't cope with it, you're stuck. It's like I'm filming this show at the moment. I've also got a secondary Skype for recording open, and I've fired up a camera, and between them, they're just about filling up the whole machine. It's got a great big red blob at the top of the screen showing me I'm peeking out at the moment. Don't go higher. But the bandwidth's not the problem. The bandwidth can now cope with this, and I think it's great. Obviously, the average punters and stuff tend to be using it to stream Netflix, and I think there's a danger with these monopolies sort of taking over the internet. They're trying to make the delivery portals. iTunes, Netflix, things like that. They're actually hogging bandwidth. I don't understand television stations that are freely available over the radio waves broadcasting on the net, because it's damn sight easier to switch on television if you've got one. It seems to be they're just trying to barge in and dominate, and they want to be like a TV channel where you'll switch to their screen and they'll control the menu and choose where you want to go. So, all this is going to become higher powered, and as gigabit speeds come along, it's almost unlimited what can come down those lines. What worries me most is what will come down those lines, and how much monopolization there will be of the channels by which we access the internet. And it may even go further. You may suddenly find countries that are sort of blocking stuff from other countries. They already do in some, when it comes to copyrights and things. So I don't know that this, the web as the global democratic platform is necessarily going to last, because we're already seeing commerce move in and governments move in and sort of customizing it. They want to provide the menus so that, they give us a lot of a choice, but it's only the choices they've selected, kind of thing. And I think if we have gigabit speeds and things like that, then great for things like virtual worlds, great for movie delivery, great for the television invaders. But it's like building a motorway for motor cars. Back in, I guess, the 60s, Britain built a lot of, over here, built a lot of the first motorways, and everybody goes on them. And,
Right.
the back roads become almost kind of deserted. And then, you have a faster lane or something. Everybody moves to that. And, you build it, they'll come and clog it.
Right.
It seems to be the general principle. And so, I just wonder, we may have these, lightning fast connectivity all over the planet, and we'll still find it impossible to do things because players will come in there and start interfering with our traffic and stuff like that. So, I'm wary of that kind of thing. But
Well,
in practice, the speeds are great. Having a constantly on virtual environment, for example, is great. But just take Second Life where we're filming now. I mean, it's not what I really consider a cloud service, but in many ways it is because my viewer is interpreting stuff for me local, but it's actually a massive server farms that are actually coughing up,
yep.
everything we're seeing. And if those servers go away, then my whole world goes away.
Right.
In a sense.
Yes.
And I'm very wary of cloud services, even with that high speed, the 150 I got at the moment, because it's not, to me, the speed. The speed's a convenience because things can be done quick, but it's what I put my trust in. I open up now and again a copy of Photoshop because I used to teach that, so I know it very well. I use an old version. I don't use the new version that has to be on the cloud. I've got, like you said, I've got that software. And I can use it. Even
Yeah.
Second Life, if Second Life disappeared, I wouldn't have the software to use. I'd have a viewer that I could probably go to OpenSim on or something. But
Yeah, we
no,
could use OpenSim.
yeah,
Because you can have it on your, even if the entire internet disappeared, you can still
I can
use
have.
OpenSim by yourself on your own computer.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
it's
but
software you can download and run.
yeah, but what about the community?
Yeah, right.
Or
Well,
what about all the people?
you'd have to invite them to your house, yes. But
Yeah,
but no, if the Second Life goes down, you have OpenSim. You can have it
yeah.
locally. You can have it on the server. You can have a million different, not a million, several dozen different providers who do it. If I'm the same way with Microsoft Office. I don't like the fact that it's expensive, that I can't use the old versions I already have lying around. I switched to OpenOffice and now LibreOffice several years ago, like 10 years ago, back in China, because we couldn't get legal versions of Windows back then. And I needed legal software, so we switched them all over to OpenOffice. And then once I made the switch, I just stuck with it.
Yeah.
Because I have it. I download it. It's on my computer, and I have it forever. There's no license fees. There's no mandatory updates. There's if I feel like updating, I'll update it. It's not going to cost me anything anyway. I really I really do not like cloud delivery of local software. And I think Photoshop is a perfect example of this. There is no reason to have a cloud component of Photoshop unless you want to get extra money for people and just pull it out of them.
Well, this is the thing, really, isn't it? I mean, manufacturers of software in this new high-speed age suddenly realize that they can make a lot more money by renting on a per use basis, than actually giving you something that you can buy and then use forever. You have no choice but to use the latest versions because it's all updated in the cloud.
Except they're setting themselves up for a pushback. The more they do this, the more people will say, okay, why don't we improve GIMP a little bit more? And a certain percentage of people will switch over with every new price hike. I mean, it's a pain to switch over the first time. It is a pain because it's different. The interface is different. I've been using GIMP all along, so I assume that it's just as difficult to switch back to Photoshop. But if I was buying it right now, I would go with GIMP because of the licensing issues.
Absolutely.
And and so they're going to be losing a certain generation of people at every point, and they're going to go too far. Now, with some software that's in the cloud, that's fine. It's for example, I use a lot of quick photo editing tools in the cloud. I don't care if they go away and are replaced by another one. They all look alike. They're all cheap. They're all free. They're all easy. I don't even bother remembering their names. I just type in online photo editor, and I'll use whatever first one that comes up because if I need to crop a photo quickly or something, I don't want to open up GIMP to do it, or if I'm on a road or on somebody else's computer, I don't know what they have, or I'm on my Linux machine. So it's easy to do, and I really don't care what that software is. I might as well use a cloud provider. I use Google Docs a lot, but I save everything as a Word file, even though I don't use Word, even though I use OpenOffice. Everything I save as Word and PDF because that's what my clients use.
I use, I might as well say this here. This is actually a good tip for people that haven't heard of it. There is a program, you can get it as an app on iPads and Android or on your desktop called IFTTT, which stands for If This Then That.
I love that app.
And they have limited services, but they seem to have new ones every week, most of which I never heard of. But it allows you a really easy way of relaying information. For example, I have 2 Twitter accounts, and my main account I've got everywhere, but in some programs I can't have more than one. And I might want to go to my Malbone's Writer Twitter account, which is only Second Life sort of destinations and things. And but I have got access to Tumblr. So I publish those links to my sort of Tumblr blog. And IFTT allows me to set up a nice little widget that's invisible. I don't have it. It just all happens online that automatically sends every Tumblr post to that particular Twitter feed. So I know that anything I post via these routes always gets to the relevant Twitter feed, and the same with Facebook, which is I keep for very real life stuff, and it's a very good system because every time I Twitter something, a record of that Twitter gets posted into a spreadsheet at Google Docs. My Google Docs spreadsheet is also, with IFTT, backed up to Dropbox. Google Docs.
TV. I don't know about the UK, but here in the United States, we are. I mean, I live in a really rural location. We have lousy TV coverage. I watch all my TV online, so don't take my online TV.
Yes, exactly. But the other thing I was going to, this is actually crucial to this issue. And by the way, Melissa, do jump in here if you have any thoughts on this. So more voices, the merrier. But Philip Rosedale, of course, is working on a new platform called High Fidelity. And from what I gather about this, I'm not, by the way, a beta tester of that. I know some people who are, but their mouths are constantly sealed. They don't have lip sync for sure. And but a lot of this is down to what I gather is going to be some parts of it are going to be peer-to-peer. Some parts of it are going to be distributed services that sort of plug into the main thing, and they can be built so different operators do different parts of the complex, so to speak. I may be wrong about this, by the way. This is just my theory. And I think it all sounds great, but what I was just saying about the menuization of our high-speed internet, I would hate to think that a platform like that would come online and suddenly we'd find ourselves being blocked by national firewalls, or it just wouldn't work because we'd have corporates interfering with the peer-to-peer systems and stuff like that, So we just don't know what the future holds. We may have the most brilliant thing on the horizon and then suddenly find that the networks and the clouds are just, impeding it for their own purposes.
Really? I don't know. I kind of think that if there's a consumer demand for something, somebody will figure out a way to get it to you. China is the a great example of it. They have the biggest state-sponsored control and censorship system on the planet. Huge amounts of money, huge amount of resources, tons of stuff still gets through, and people have VPNs, people have anonymous proxies, all sorts of stuff gets distributed really quickly through social media. Uh, so they're keeping the lid on things, but they're keeping things from boiling over, but they're not keeping things from heating up almost instantly. And so I have a feeling that, and that's like the worst case example. So that if it goes too far in one direction or another, we will have repercussions in any kind of democratic society, or even a closed one like China. We will have repercussions. People will vote with their votes, or people will vote with their dollars and pay for better systems that they will use to get around the controls.
There's two things actually. None of them are this week's news, but they've been. I've been reading up on them recently. That actually give me hope for this. Seen together. One is they are developing a new Wi-Fi protocol where the reach will be 35 miles.
Excellent.
Which could
Great.
change the nature in which we use Wi-Fi, but also the fact that I think all the new Apple things have it, and most Androids have it, is near field communications, where you can relay to somebody else nearby's Wi-Fi, and you create a link between all your devices via Wi-Fi until it gets to somebody who's got a link to the internet. And of course, if you're dealing with Wi-Fi signals that can go over a really wide range, I might be in a field in Wales. I might link to somebody in a village in the valley, and they might link to somebody in the nearest town. They might link, another 35 miles of stuff. And I don't know about latency, but the idea there is you don't, the link happens independently and ultimately gets to the web, where it's free to get to the web, so to speak. But it also, it's like a Twitter in microcosm, because using near field technology, you can use your Wi-Fi signal to talk to people around you without actually ever going near the internet. It's all back and forth via Wi-Fi. So I think those two things together could potentially revolutionize things.
Near field technology is used by payment cards. It actually works within like a couple of centimeters of the reader. It's when you tap a card on a reader. That's the near field technology. It's for payment processing. It's not for communications. For communications, you're talking about a mesh network. And I would love to see. There's some people are already experimenting with this. Some cell phone carriers and stuff. As cell phones get more powerful and can transmit and receive and pass on these signals, and all our devices get more powerful, and Wi-Fi gets more long distance, definitely more feasible. I think we're like right now we have to juggle all these different connectivities. We got bandwidth here, we've got Wi-Fi there, we plug in here, we plug in there. I think in a few years from now, this will be seamless and universal, and you will just be online all the time wherever you are, and it will be like you have water. Like in the first world, you have water everywhere. There's water fountains everywhere. You can buy water if you feel like it, but there's also public water fountains and bathrooms everywhere you go. Every house has plumbing. Every restaurant has plumbing. Every public facility of any kind has plumbing. It's just universal. You don't even think about it. Like whereas in some third world village, you have to know where your water's coming from, where the nearest well is. You have to hike a day to get there, that kind of thing. But here we live in an environment where it's ubiquitous, universal, and there might be a price for it that's based on your utility services or your electric services or however you do it, or if per bottle, but it's always available. Like nobody ever has to go thirsty. I think we're getting that way with internet, where it's a kind of a fundamental right. And how can we possibly not have connectivity? What if you get sick? What if you need a doctor? What if you need to send a text message to somebody in a hurry? How can you possibly be offline?
Well, exactly. If my heart monitor is connected to the internet and the cloud somewhere, what happens if it goes down? No, sorry, customer, you're dead.
Exactly. Well,
yeah.
Well, you're not necessarily dead if your heart monitor goes down, but if you are dead, they won't be able to send somebody out and find you because they won't know you're dead.
What I was actually thinking about when I actually used the phrase near field technology, but I'm a bit the wrong one. But there's an app you can get now, which I gather has been used in trouble spots around the world and locally too. I think it's called Fire Chat. And that already does the communication via Wi-Fi that bypasses the internet. I mean, basically, if I download Fire Chat onto my iPad, and you download it onto yours, we can actually connect within Wi-Fi range. So you could be at
cool.
You can be at the conference, for example, and you can chat on Wi-Fi to everybody in the room who's got that app, like Twitter. The only difference is that, unlike Twitter, it's not live on the web. It's simply a private network for you at the conference.
Fantastic.
And
cool.
that's already out there. It's getting a lot of, it's obviously being used in some of the trouble spots of the world at the moment, possibly by the people we don't want using it. Or, but the thing is, it's becoming increasingly popular. It's just being, its download figures for Android and all the places it's available on phones and stuff are phenomenal at the moment. It's one of the most downloaded apps at the moment. So that was what I was thinking of in terms of near field technology. It might be the wrong word I've chosen. And like, okay, they've all got Wi-Fi, fair enough. Right. Now, does it have Bluetooth? Does it have Bluetooth to connect to that? Let me see. Oh, now, does it have infrared to control that? And I'm suddenly going through this list. It's got data, it's got Bluetooth, it's got infrared, it's got Wi-Fi. What's it missing, or what hasn't it got?
What it's missing is direct connection to your brain waves.
Yes,
so that it can send images, sounds, smells, and textures directly into your brain. And your interface will be you thinking you want to go in this direction or pick up that object or send a text message to that person. And your thought commands will actually be the interface. And that's the next stage.
And they've done that, haven't they?
We're already getting there, for the handicap,
Yeah, we can't get it, but I mean they've rigged up systems where
there's consumer headsets on the market that pick up brainwaves already. I mean they're like really, really early, like remember the dictation things that you had to train for like months before it would recognize anything at all. So the brainwave readers are kind of like that, but as you can imagine, they're going to get better faster quickly.
We talk about Oculus Rifts and Leap Motions and Philip saying kill the mouse. But if we had an interface that worked with our brain, I would just think walk forward, walk back, press a prim. We wouldn't need any of that stuff really.
Exactly. We should just skip over the whole gadget phase and go straight to brainwave readers. If everybody out there who's currently developing a new Razer Hydra or a new Sixth Sense or a new treadmill puts that time and energy into brainwave recognition instead, we could be there by now.
Indeed, we could. That is a fascinating thought. Yeah, it's whatever's marketable at a point in time, and they're just going for good point.
And in fact, we can recycle all the same technologies probably being used right now for speech recognition by Siri. Switch her right over to mind reading.
Hang on. Yeah, let me interrupt here because I was just about to ask Melissa if she had any thoughts on this, but I think from the beeps in Skype here, I think is that Melissa? You're saying you have to go?
I do have
Yeah.
to go. I think
Yes,
this is
indeed.
fascinating conversation, but I have to go, and that's why I've not been as collaborative. There's something pressing I need to take care of.
Okay, well, it's been great having you. Did you have any quick thoughts on this subject, by the way? We're going to wrap up now anyway, I think. So.
No, I mean, I think the management of files and IFTT, I use it all the time myself, and I use Dropbox and Google Docs, and then there's a whole, where I work on a daily basis, everybody uses something different, so having to share
Yes.
documents is it's always just a complete nightmare. But I have my own system that kind of works out, and I think that's it. I would love to be able to make it so that I don't have so many different systems working together to
Yes.
connect. Yeah.
I think we all do. We all develop our perfect sort of workflow system, and then we curse when somebody doesn't fit into it very well.
Right.
But that's life, isn't it?
Yep.
Well, I'll let you. I'll switch the camera away from you in a sec and let you poof off. But it's been very good having you here, Melissa. And maybe join us again in a couple of weeks when we're right on top of it, if you feel like it.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, it's been our pleasure. So I'm going to move the camera so you can safely disappear.
Okay, great. Have a great day.
And you. Right, now we've got the camera back on me. So,
now,
Maria.
There's one more OpenSIM thing I want to talk about with you here today, Mal. A couple years back, I was running something called a Hypergrid Entrepreneur Group. We were meeting on the Hyperica Grid, and it was about a monthly event for entrepreneurs. And it was a place to meet together with other people doing other projects and maybe find partners or get help on things. And hang out with people you normally wouldn't hang out with because they're your potential competitors. But also potential partners, right? But because most of the time everybody's like doing their own thing and we're kind of isolated. So I'm going to be restarting that. And one of the things that I would very much like to do is, if anybody is interested in this out there, is a content management system. And seeing the LiDAR thing from the Moses Grid from the U.S. military reminded me that this is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. Now, content management is a way of organizing all that stuff that you have in an easy way. So, for example, on the website, we used to have hand-coded HTML, and every single page had to be hand-coded separately. Then we moved on to Dreamweaver, where we had little page templates set up. So the menus and everything else, you could just copy them from page to page. And if you had to update it, Dreamweaver would update it for you on all your pages, unless you messed up the template, got it disconnected, in case you were in trouble. And then we finally moved to content management systems like WordPress and Drupal and Blogger and the rest of them that actually took this to another level, where almost everything was provided by the system and you just brought your own unique content, which is the photographs and the stories that you were telling. And you can customize the templates around you, but it totally separated the framework of the site from the meat of the site, the stuff that's always changing.
Yeah.
And it made it a lot easier for people to put up really nice looking websites. If you look back on sites from 1990s, they were scary. And now even the free templates available from like WordPress and stuff like that could be really, really wonderful and gorgeous. When I first started as a technology journalist, the magazine where I worked spent about $1 million on a content management system called Vignette that helped them organize their online publication because they had a lot of web pages. I mean, they had a lot of web pages. And today, that's not even a fraction of the functionality. You get an off-the-shelf free WordPress. The
There's even I think it's called Weebly, which you can make quick web pages with at the moment, and they don't. Well, they give you templates, but I think it's the one called Weebly. They literally ask you what you want in terms of what you want your content to be, and you don't do any design. They're just working out something for you and
yes.
allow you different choices.
Yeah,
Totally separate operations. Yeah.
there's a lot. Yeah, a lot of them out there. I mean, I mentioned WordPress, the biggest ones. They've got 62% of the market at last count. And Joomla and Drupal are next, and then you got the Weeblies and the bloggers and everybody else afterwards. But for OpenSim, we're still in the age of hand coding HTML right now. What the LiDAR system does is it speeds it up a little bit for making custom regions for custom environments. But but there's plenty of times where you don't want a fully custom environment, where you don't care if your region looks very similar to somebody else's. Just like if you have a blog, maybe you don't care so much that the title is up on top of the page and the menus are on the sides, just like everybody else's. It's not unique. Your font is a little different, and your color is different, but basically your blog looks like everybody else's. But that's okay because everybody knows how to get around. So if you have a region that looks like everybody else's, your central landing area is here, this building is here, this building is there. Well, at least everybody knows to get around. And you can still, change the themes, change the colors, and change the fonts and the graphics and stuff on it. So what I was thinking of, wouldn't it be nice to have a system that would automatically pull assets for you from a central database based on what you want? Like you want a theme, you want a summer tropical themed region with, a store and an office and, this and that. And you can play with it on the web a little bit to configuration. Pick some options, and then we'll generate the region for you and have it up and running. Like right now, there's already hosting companies that will let you pick from any of the Linda Kelly regions. So you pick one and it would just boots it up. Well, why not give you a little bit more functionality? Have you pick a theme, and it would automatically update all the textures in it to fit your theme.
The moment you're talking there, I immediately thought of Linda Kelly because I forget what it was a couple of weeks ago. I was at that site, and I suddenly realised that in choosing something, I had no easy visual way of seeing what it was until I actually chose that AUR file or something like that. Whereas it's not like Google Warehouse where you can just get a brief template of what it is you're going to get before you get it, kind of thing. So there is definitely something missing in the content delivery side there, and the idea that you could just get a preview of it, maybe customize it before you even import it.
I would love to work on a project like that. If somebody out there has the back-end database or the building skills to make the default template stuff, I would love to work on the marketing and the PR side of it and the sales side to get it out there, because I think that this would be something that would really help adoption of OpenSim. And we can sell it as a commercial product to hosting companies to make it easier for them to sell more regions. And we could maybe sell a standalone freebie product to people who want to have self-hosted regions on their own computers, or provide or partner up with hosting companies to provide it as an add-on to their existing hosting services. So if somebody's interested in that, send me a note. We'll get together, we'll talk. Or if you're interested in helping with Shanghai Entrepreneur Group, send me a note as well, and maybe help me organize it.
Let me come back to that. Yeah, you didn't make that clear. We went into the content delivery. Shanghai Hosting Group. You didn't really. Is this related to the entrepreneur meetup?
Sorry. I used to run the Shanghai Entrepreneur Group when I was based in China.
Yeah.
And I mixed the two up. Yes, I meant the Hypergrid Entrepreneur Group, not the Shanghai Entrepreneur Group.
But you're still
Also,
running. Yeah, you're still running the Hypergrid Entrepreneur Group, are you?
yeah, but we haven't had any meetings in like 2
Mm,
years. So
yeah.
nobody
Now,
else has
I've
stepped forward. So I guess I'm still running it.
now I've always actually thought that was that sort of thing is a great idea. I tried to do it with the basically broadcasters and TV and Second Life and elsewhere. Um, Metaworld Broadcasting wasn't really designed to be a broadcaster as such originally, apart from Week in Review. It was sort of I thought it could be part of it could be like a club for the Treat TVs and all the others that come and go. And I remember setting up meetings with Metaverse TV and me and Treat TV and a couple of others and things like that. And the idea was it'd be like no sexist reference here, but it'd be like those old-fashioned gentlemen's clubs where all the people in a certain profession joined it, and they'd hang out smoky in the evening with their direct competitors, and they communicated on a level. They didn't give away trade secrets. They just
Exactly.
collaborated on a kind of impartial level. And I've always said that what we're doing here is television's old hat. The only reason we still do it is to get to TV viewers, to show them what's possible, and hope that 1 in 10 people click and sign up for a virtual world. It's outwardly projecting and promoting the metaverse, and I'm not going to get anywhere very quick if I'm just on my own doing it, or if there's somebody else on their own doing it, and we're all sort of stuck in little backwaters. It's the sort of thing where we need to collaborate. And what you're saying with the entrepreneurial group and OpenSim seems to be very much the same thing to me. You need that thing on the level where people can get together and not swap trade secrets, but otherwise collaborate on general common interests.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to get involved in that, send me an email at maria@hypergroupbusiness.com, or stop by Hyperica. I'm hanging out there more and more often these days as we're getting closer to finishing up the build.
Great. I shall have to pop over there in the week and hope to find you there. I'll always drop you a line saying, "Hey, I'm gate crashing Hyperica. Where are you?"
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we've pretty much exhausted this week. I'm sure there's other stuff we haven't raised. I've got a whole load of Second Life links on my screen, but I'm not going to go into them really.
Yeah,
the only made thing that was in the news, and I'm not going to open the link for it, but Linden Lab also in the week have announced that they're introducing a viewer-managed marketplace. I'm not quite sure. A viewer-managed marketplace. In other words, they're going to hand over. Well, I can't. I think we'll have to investigate further. But I think basically the idea is they're going to try and get users of the marketplace to help run it or build it. I'm not entirely sure, but certainly it's going to be more interactive than just the basic marketplace it is at the moment. In fact, while we are talking, I will quickly, because this, of course, could relate to other marketplaces around, I'll just quickly open up the link to this. This is actually a summary report from Inarape's blog. I'll just stick it over here. So we got a record of it. It's Linden Lab announced viewer-managed marketplace is on the way. And there'll be major changes coming in 2015 on how merchants interact with the SL marketplace. And these changes are part of a result of the lab working on resolving issues. Yes. I can just say this is probably typical of Second Life, isn't it? The lab actually plays around with it and can't resolve the issues. So they think, well, maybe we'll get the customers to come in and do it for us.
They want the viewer developers to fix their direct delivery issue for free. Because they're busy working on SL2. So they're
I'm just I'm quickly going to strap on my glasses here and just read out the bits that Nara picked up on. Items for sale on the marketplace will no longer be stored on the marketplace servers. They will remain in the merchant's inventory, so there will no longer be any need to upload stock to the marketplace. There will be a new panel, as apparently unnamed, within the viewer. This will replace the merchant outbox and a copy of tasks from within the viewer. They'll be able to create listings with stock. They'll be able to associate inventory to an existing listing. They can remove items from a listing, and they can unlist goods entirely. All this done within the viewer. But some other marketplace activities will still require logging into the SL Marketplace's web interface.
I cannot see this going well.
It does sound a bit major, doesn't it? There appear to be a couple of audio files here.
I see those.
Brooke Linden talking about this too. There will be a migration process which the lab hopes to make as smooth as possible. Well, we've heard that one before. But yeah, it does sound sort of sensible. I mean, I must say one of those things that is annoying in Second Life is the frequency with which you have to launch the secondlife.com or Second Life Marketplace in the web browser. If some of those facilities are actually available via your inventory tab or whatever, then if it works, it may be a good thing. I won't put too much emphasis on the if. It sounds a bit of a major job.
Oh, I have to wonder how many. Where did they find the merchants who wanted this?
Oh, good point. Well, they did suggest that it's to do with research and feedback, but yes, I don't really know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's call it a wrap. The only other thing, Melissa is of course gone now, but the University of Western Australia's Transcending Borders competitions are still going on. There's the 3D art competition and also the machinima exhibition. And if you want to enter, if you want to make a machinima for Transcending Borders contest, do it now, because your closing date is October the 31st, which is not really that far away. And I think the same date also applies to the 3D art contest too. So, okay, anything else briefly before we call it a wrap, Maria?
Just that the 15th is coming up. I'm doing the monthly stats report. So if you have a new grid or a new statistics page or a new calendar page or announcements, send them my way, maria@hypergridbusiness.com.
Great. And of course, if you want the latest tweets and stuff like that as they occur, you can also go to Hypergrid Business on Twitter, or Meta Maria on Twitter, and Hypergrid. So my tongue's all dry. Hypergridbusiness.com for a goodly number of posts every day, as a rule. And you can check out latest things from me during the week at twitter.com/malburns, and I also have another feed, twitter.com/malburns_writer. Which is specific to Second Life rather than the sort of metaverse as a whole. If you'd like to watch this program in replay, as ever, you can find it in glorious high definition in the format that will play on every pod, tablet, Android, desktop, everything you can think of, possibly even TV, at slartist.com. That's SLARTIST.com. And this very show will be up there within a couple of hours, I'm sure, too. We will also, I'll also try and make sure the links that we've been mentioning in this show get up there too, because we haven't actually had a live broadcast this week. So, Well, that's just housekeeping, really, isn't it? So, with that, I think it's time for a wrap. We will, I'm sure, have Tara back with us next week. So, and over the air, get well soon to Tara. And meanwhile, thanks to Melissa. She's no longer with us, but thanks for joining us. And of course, thank you to Maria. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Mel, for having me. Always a pleasure.
Right. And with that, I think it's just in time. You can hear the cough starting, can't you? Bad news. So with that, we'll cut it out. We will be back same time, same place next week for your dedication. And I guess that's it for now. So see you next week.